Forza Horizon 5 is the most recognizable game from one of the most recognizable racing franchises. Everyone knows what it is if they haven't already played it somewhere. And yet, it's still got its problems. 250,000 reviews on Steam, almost all positive, and a 10 out of 10 from IGN. Yet much discussion about its many problems. So, what is it? With its sequel and 6th entry on the, Horizon, let's take a final look back at Horizon 5 and find out if it's good or bad. First off, we need to talk about the most important aspect of any video game. Say it with me, the gameplay. And here's the thing, Forza Horizon 5 does its gameplay really well. Cars feel amazing to drive. The handling is realistic enough to not feel like you're playing Burnout, yet arcadey enough to not make you spin out when you take a corner too hard, all while still having a fairly high skill ceiling. There's always something you can do to improve your lap time. There's always something you could do better, despite this game leaning far more towards being an arcade racer. Simply cruising at low speeds or stopping your car and admiring the scenery are still very enjoyable. And Horizon is probably one of the only arcade racing games I know where I enjoy something as simple as doing hot laps. And yet all the cars still feel fairly different from one another. Sure, some cars have their issues, but overall it isn't hard to tell the difference between a 3,700-pound rear-wheel drive RCF versus a lightweight BAC mono. A Miata feels like a Miata, and a track car drives like a track car. The difficulty isn't perfect, but for the most part it's been improved. Drivatars still sometimes hit you randomly, and the difficulty is still fairly inconsistent depending on the route, but overall the racing experience in Forza Horizon 5 is still very good. The racing in this game is a lot of fun. I know the competitive scene as well as some of the moderators have had their fair share of scandals, but from a first glance it isn't hard to see why big name reviewers often hand out perfect scores to this game. The handling is fun, there's so many cars and the graphics are shiny. Yet when you take a second look, the cracks start to show. Mexico. It's fine. Yeah, that's kinda all I have to say about it, and that's the issue. The map is incredibly bland, empty, and dare I say, kinda dead. The map is very boring. Often you'll be driving on the same road for minutes on end without seeing any significant change in your environment. The highway leads to the same light poles and surrounding desert, where Horizon 2, 3, and to an extent even 4 were full of elevation changes and interesting things to see. Horizon 5 is flat, boring, and empty. There's no bridge right by the ocean like it was back in Europe, no weird tower you can jump through, and no giant forest. Horizon Mexico feels padded out, almost like it was made by Ubisoft. The game flat out refuses to add anything of interest in its huge flat patches of grass and sand that go as far as the eye can see, but don't include anything that you'll actually remember. And on top of that, the map often feels incredibly lifeless. Traffic is incredibly scarce and they all drive old Beetles and Subarus, while the rest of the map seems to have a significant lack of technology. The map just doesn't have much technology in it. The houses are primitive, towns have dirt paths, and the city, Guanajuato, wasn't really made for the supercars that you drive in it. It looks more like a Far Cry map than a place I'd be racing my Koenigsegg Jesko. And then there's the seasons. Horizon 4's main gimmick was exactly this. The map would change its season every week, leaving you with a new and interesting change to the map. It was honestly great seeing the map change the way it did, with the environment's color palette changing as time progressed, and snow falling on the road and the lake freezing in the winter. But I think you can see the problem. People didn't want to drive their 800 horsepower Lamborghini through the snow, and that was Horizon 4's biggest issue. When it was winter, the game was just a lot less fun. The game would be locked into winter for the entire week with exactly nothing you could do about it, meaning that if you really wanted to drive on clean roads, it simply wouldn't be possible. Now, why am I bringing up Horizon 4 in a Horizon 5 review? Well, Horizon 5 also has seasons as the festival playlist evolves. The only thing is, Playground Games' solution to Horizon 4's problem was to make the seasons pretty much mean nothing. Aside from a slight color palette change, you can hardly tell the difference between summer and winter. So like, what was the point of adding seasons if you're just gonna make them hardly have any difference? Wouldn't it have made more sense to add just like a change season button? Sure, the map's not all bad. The canyons were a nice idea, with the train coming by every so often. I don't like driving off-road, but the forests look nice, and the roads by this one mountain are pretty fun to drift on. But there's one thing that Horizon Mexico does better than any other Horizon map, and that's the visuals. Surface level level details aren't everything in a video game, but they do still matter, so let's talk about them. Yup, it's time for my regular video games graphics glaze session. Look man, I'm a guy who literally made hundreds of 3D models of stuff as a kid, so the technical side of things is something I really appreciate, okay? Horizon 5 is probably one of the best looking games I've ever played, and that's hardly an exaggeration. I've played Minecraft with some of the most impressive shaders, Cyberpunk 2077 with mods, and many other titles, but out of the box, Horizon 5 is the best looking one. Everything is exquisitely detailed, from the interior gauges to the bulbs and the lights to the engines themselves. Everything was handcrafted with love, from the cars to the roads to the mountains. These roads might be terrible to race on, and the map might be completely drab, but hey, at least we can see it in 4K ultra high definition. The forests are so lush and green, the deserts are so dry, and everything is just so pleasing to look at. The game also runs incredibly well. It won't run on a toaster, but it'll work on even the most modest of gaming systems, and yet it still takes great advantage of high-end hardware, which is pretty good considering the current state of the PC market. I know most of you guys probably don't care much about the technical details, but playing this game on a 49-inch ultra-wide OLED at max settings on a high-end gaming PC is truly a beautiful experience. Like, just look at this. And now the part I'm guessing most of you were waiting for, the campaign. Horizon's campaign is as controversial as it is for a reason. It barely exists, and out of the portion that does exist, it's not all that great. The campaign works like this. You do races to get money and unlock more races. You use that money to buy more cars and keep progressing to different race locations. Keep doing that until you finish the game. There's also side content in the form of Horizon stories and other live service content. Sounds great, right? Well, a lot of it is. The content itself is fun. Apart from cross-country, most of the game's racing is made good by the handling model. The racing is fun, and other events like drifting and stunt jumps are just as satisfying to play. Yet Horizon 5 is still criticized for two of its main flaws in this regard: the story and the progression. Horizon's story is, well, pretty awful in all honesty. The writing is terrible. Every character, including yours, is incredibly one note and are always overly excited about every little thing that happens. Every character is always happy to be there and is incredibly cheerful about every little thing that happens. Even when the plot makes it conducive for them to slow down for an emotional moment that builds their character, they just ignore it and go back to being constantly happy. There's even a part in one of the expeditions where Rami supposedly crashes his plane into a tree, only for him to come back and laugh about it. Even for the characters that are dead, they still laugh about it. Alejandra talks about one of her dead family members, but can't stop giggling. And look man, I get that this is a racing game where we've been told that stories don't matter. It shouldn't be that big of a part of the game. Rami and Alejandra and Alex constantly talk throughout the duration of the entire game, making every interaction with them incredibly miserable. And then there's the progression. Here's the thing, there's no motivation to play the game beyond the first few events for any other reason than the love of the game. Horizon throws high-end sports, super, and even hypercars at you from the start. When you're asked to pick your starter car, the Horizon announcer says, "Just kidding," and gives you all of them. But it's not just that. You get tons of Horizon wheel spins that will certainly give you a fast car, a lot of credits, or sometimes both. And if that wasn't enough, you can buy pretty much any car in the game for next to nothing in the auction house. Lotus Exige? That'll be 20,000 credits, please. C7 RS6? Yeah, 70k. Put that next to the free 918 you got for no reason. And while it might make for a good sandbox, the lack of scarcity often breeds a lack of care for the cooler cars you do own. Owning an R35 GTR or McLaren 570S doesn't feel like that much of an achievement anymore. They're just collecting dust in your garage. You rarely bond with a certain car since you're hardly ever forced to use it. The moment you get bored of one car, you can immediately switch it over to another. M5 got boring after 2 minutes? Go ahead, swap it out, as you have potentially hundreds of supercars on standby. The slower cars mean nothing to most people, nor the memories they had using them in the first few races. It's been 11 years since I was a kid playing Horizon 1 on the 360, but I so vividly remember my love for the F40 and C6 Corvette that I won from 2 of the showcase events. Those were the few supercars I had access to, so they were the ones I used. And nobody's asking for a hardcore Gran Turismo 4-esque experience, but the reason why Horizon is criticized the way it is today is because of the lack of any kind of restrictions, anything that ever limits your choice in any regard, and this makes a big difference. Too often I've heard people argue that progression simply doesn't matter, or that the actual gameplay is much more important. But I think that's a bad faith argument. When implemented correctly, meaningful progression is what keeps you coming back time and time again. It's what made TDU 2, Horizon 1, Most Wanted 2005, and even the old Forza Motorsport games so great. But in the back of your mind, you always have that car you've been dreaming about. Any of them could be yours, but you always needed to work for it. It's not always about having things that made them fun. It was the pursuit of something which ends up being far more meaningful. There was a build-up, then a payoff. I've spent almost 1,200 hours in GTA 5 because the gameplay loop of doing a heist or two, then buying a new car with the money I earned was that satisfying. The problem is that in Horizon, there's only ever a payoff, and that gets boring after a while. Sure, you can ignore the game's faults if you really enjoy the gameplay on its own, but you can't deny that this is a central issue to this game. Removing what is one of the most essential mechanics in any video game, presumably in the name of mass appeal, is what has been what's ruined Forza for the last decade. Alright, so Horizon's campaign kinda sucks, but that's fine because it's got a good live service, right? Well, let's take a look at it. Horizon's live service is pretty simple. Every month there's a new festival playlist with a specific theme, such as time periods, manufacturers, or something else. Do some races or championships as part of the festival playlist to earn points. Then, as you earn more points, you're eligible to claim the weekly live service cars. It's fun for a while, and it's great for both new and casual players. Invest 30 minutes to an hour of your time, enjoy some of the game's content, and get rewarded for it in the form of a brand new car that you can't get anywhere else. And in concept, it's great, but what about the cars that have already been added to the game as part of previous festival playlists? For the longest time, your only 2 options were either hoping for that car to return to a future festival playlist, or try to snipe it from the auction house for 20 million credits. That's it. Towards the beginning of FH5's life cycle, cars that were freely available in previous games were cut out to be put back in as live service content, meaning that if all you wanted to do was drive a car that was there in Horizon 4, there was a chance that you would have to grind all over again just to get it. And there's the problem. It all relies on a FOMO model. If you miss a playlist, who knows how long it'll be until those rewards are available again. But that's the problem. Horizon tries to cross a boundary that games shouldn't try to cross. Games are entertainment, not a commitment, and not everyone wants to spend hours of their limited free time every week into a game they're not even interested in playing. You're not lazy for not wanting to spend several hours every month grinding festival playlists instead of doing something else. I say all this because I actually missed the playlist to get the 992 Turbo S, which is my real life dream car for the longest time, because I had some other things going on in my life when the original playlist was active, and Forza wasn't exactly at the top of my priorities. Fun fact, the only way I got this car was a while later when I decided to randomly log in and see what's going on, only to see this car as like a reward for completing a championship. I guess you could say it was fate. The backstage shop is a band-aid solution. You still need backstage passes, which, while not the hardest thing in the world to get, are still not particularly easy to come by, and do need a significant time investment. And sure, with enough dedication, you can get every backstage car, but when Horizon 6 rolls around, what's to say that Playground Games isn't gonna bring back the FOMO content again? The same cycle is gonna repeat itself. You're gonna work for the same things you had in Horizon 5. Here's the thing, this might be a hot take, but I honestly don't even dislike the DLC car packs for this exact reason. I'd rather pay $5 for a couple cars than waste hours of my time on FOMO content designed to maximize player retention. So that's it for the live service. Sure, it's fun to pick up and play for short periods of time, but at the end of the day, it was meant to push Game Pass sales. Why do you think the game relies primarily on a live service model that changes every month? The truth is, Horizon 5 was never designed with the same mindset that the original games were made with. It was made so that you keep your Game Pass subscription subscription. It wasn't made to be played, finished, and then shelved. It was made for you to keep playing and keep paying that $15 every month. It started with Game Pass back in 2018, and it's been that way up until now. That's why Horizon is the way it is. That's why it's designed with retention in mind. These games might have some character, but honestly, there's a reason why Horizon is as bland as it is. It wasn't made to have character that could potentially throw some people off. It was meant to appeal to as many people as possible. Horizon 5 isn't a bad game. I don't think anyone could honestly argue that. It's got the best handling, graphics, and even the biggest car list in the business. There's no getting over that. But the reason why people complain, the reason why half my channel so far has just been dogging on Forza is because we all want it to get better. Sure, I think it's funny making jokes about this series, but all the critics who grew up with these games say what they do because they want these games to get better. In the quest of realistic graphics, we lost style and art direction. In the quest of having 1,000 drivable vehicles, we lost the charm of our first car. And in the quest of mass appeal, we lost things that make us remember the game. When Horizon 6 comes around and inevitably outdates Horizon 5 in its car list and graphical fidelity, what will anyone remember 5 for? Most Wanted 2005 didn't need a million cars or the best graphics to be a fan favorite. It's remembered because it's unapologetic in its presentation. Sure, it's really stupid sometimes, but the game did things that no other game did. And that's the problem with racing games. They keep missing the fact that there's still games, and that there's no reason for them to not focus on things like presentation, story, or vibes. It's been said before, but Horizon 5 is great, but it won't be remembered. Hey everyone, I hope y'all are doing well, and happy belated New Year. Do people say that? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I hardly uploaded this past year, but I'm gonna be trying to put out more videos for you guys. And with that, I've been trying out this new editing style. My old one was an actual pain to edit with. Like, it would legitimately take me 3 weeks to be able to make a 15-minute long video because of the sheer number of clips I had to record and then paste into the timeline. So let me know what you guys thought of this video in the comments. I'm gonna be seriously taking criticism and improving my content depending on what you guys tell me. Also, with this, I'm gonna be uploading a bit more frequently. I don't want to promise anything to you guys just yet, but all I'm gonna say is that it's gonna be a bit more than what it used to be, which was not very often. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching, seriously.